With Far Cry 6's upcoming Insanity DLC fast approaching, it's high time we talked about what Far Cry 6 tells us about the potential of the gameplay and what we could possibly expect to see from this DLC. This is kinda like a part 2 to a video I did a couple months back on everything we've learned about the DLC so far, but this time we'll be looking at what Far Cry 6 itself tells us instead of details from the trailers. Since the last time we talked about the Season Pass, there haven't been any trailers or bits of information excluding this recent article from Ubisoft about their latest update to the game, which announced the release date for Vaas Insanity. It'll be available at midnight, whatever your local time is, on November 16th. And luckily, with the latest update installed, everything is set for you to jump right into the DLC and start playing right once the clock hits midnight. The way you'll be able to access this DLC is at every single major guerrilla camp for all of the major factions. That's the Monteros, the Maximus Matanzas, and the Legends of 67. So you can find a little video game console in each of these camps, and this will be your primary method of accessing the DLC. As a first in the series, having the DLC being accessed through an in-game world interface, I think that this is a very cool and interesting way of doing the DLC in Far Cry 6, as well as it kind of tying into a bit of a hypothesis that I'll be going into later on in this video. The next thing we've learned from Far Cry 6 is something we actually do see in the trailers: Mythical Animals. It seems that Mythical Animals will be returning to the Villains DLC, but this time, they might possibly return as free-roaming enemies, or something we possibly encounter more frequently than in the base game. This would really spice up exploring each of these locations again through Rook Islands in the upcoming Insanity DLC, Kirat in Control as Pagan Min, and Montana and Collapse as Joseph Seed. We know that in Insanity, at least, we'll be using in-game cash to buy upgrades for weapons, traits, and possibly more, so potentially the Mythical Animals could serve as methods of earning large amounts of cash and kind of having a farmable source of earning currency that's also kind of a risk to take on. We only get to fight these animals once in the base game of Far Cry 6, but potentially encountering multiple of them at the same time would maybe be pretty tough, especially with the constant poison damage, or maybe the summoning a whole bunch of jaguars to fight you. It could potentially be pretty interesting. We're going to need methods of earning cash in the DLC, and hunting animals, taking down convoys, and possibly other base game activities could serve as our source of earning this cold hard cash. We could see other base game activities such as liberating outposts, or maybe capturing supply drops, as well as exploring through the world with randomized loot. Randomizing loot in the base game saw us unlocking outfits and weapons slightly at random through F&D crates and Libertad chests. In the DLC, we'll have chests that we can loot that may contain cash in varying amounts, or possibly new weapons and maybe even outfits along the way. The whole random loot thing was really fresh for the series, and seems like it would fit into this roguelike genre DLC even better than the RPG light approach of Far Cry 6. I think we could see outfits in the DLC from this one scene we get of Vaas in the mirror. For some reason, he's not wearing the orange shirt that he usually has, so this might be a bit of a stretch. So I'm kind of unsure, but it might be an outfit that he has specifically for the DLC, or it might mean that we'll have unlockable outfits that we can find along the way through chests, or maybe by completing missions or objectives. In the last video, I had a theory that we would unlock weapon skins and outfits potentially through this DLC, and I think the fact that the interface is in the game world kind of adds to that. That plus the mirror shot of Vaas potentially having different unlockable clothing makes it all the more grounded. And on top of that, you even unlock an outfit from completing Lola's special ops missions. I mean, I could totally be wrong here, but I think it would be an awesome way to give us something fresh in the base game from this DLC. The last thing that Far Cry 6 could potentially tell us about the upcoming Villains DLC has some potential plot spoilers. So here's a plot spoiler warning, just in case if you haven't finished the base game yet, because we're going to be talking about the end credits scene here. The scene in specific is this one.
Thanks you for your support. And I come bearing good news. Our Ribeiro supply has tripled.
You know, it's so sad about that Castillo kid. I mean, what his papa did. Wow, that is crazy.
Nah, a tragedy.
Well, you know, some people are just sick in the mind, hermano. They're out of control.
Same time next week.
Well, you can bet your life on it.
Now, of course, there are a whole bunch of Far Cry plot theories, and this is obviously absolutely massive for the Far Cry story and how it all just kind of ties together. But this also potentially could hint towards a potential link-up between Far Cry 6 as well as the Insanity DLC and the potential other DLC afterward. We might have like some sort of a crazy unraveling plot that ties all of the games together that we might be able to experience through this DLC. It's yet to be seen what sort of plot we'll partake in these DLC. We just know that we'll be venturing into the minds of these iconic villains from the series. As we venture into the minds of these villains, we might find plot threads that can tie all of the video games together in this really crazy interwoven web of a plot that maybe even would wind up with Far Cry 5 and New Dawn as the finale point timeline-wise. It's hard to know. Either way, I don't think that the end credits scene is just some throwaway end credits scene. I think that it potentially could have some massive implications on the upcoming DLC, and maybe even the series as a whole moving forwards. With just a few days until the DLC launches, we'll have answers to all these questions very soon. But for now, I'd like to know what you think of the upcoming DLC. Are there any features you'd like to see from this video in the end? There are so many ways this could turn out, but I'm stoked to see what we'll all wind up with come this Tuesday. Cheers, folks, and thank you for watching.